Factories ran on sweat, noise, and grit. But behind every long shift was a lunch pail packed with survival. These sandwiches weren't luxuries. They were lifelines. Born from thrift, scraps, and ingenuity, they carried men and women through smoke-filled mills, roaring assembly lines, and coal-streaked tunnels. Each bite was memory, strength, and heritage disguised as food. Lunch breaks were short, but hunger was endless. These sandwiches fit inside wax paper, tin boxes, and calloused hands. They traveled from kitchen stoves to factory floors without fuss or waste. They told stories of migration and survival. Southern biscuits carried north, immigrant recipes brined in vinegar and spice, leftovers reborn as fuel. Every sandwich held a piece of a family's history. Factories didn't wait for tired bodies. Men needed fuel for steel, coal, and ships. Women worked looms and sewing floors, their pails filled with scraps turned into sustaining meals. Children, too, carried these sandwiches into mills before they were old enough for school. Cold potatoes, fatback, or egg salad reminded them of kitchens they left before dawn. These weren't polished recipes for cookbooks. They were inventions of necessity, recipes forged in poverty and carried with pride. Each one proof that survival had flavor. These are 20 American lost sandwich recipes that fed factory workers for decades. Meals that carried love, grit, and survival between two slices of bread. Number 1. Liverwurst and onion sandwich. This wasn't fancy lunch. This was factory fuel. Thick slabs of liverwurst, sharp onions, and rye bread stacked together to keep steel workers on their feet. Immigrant kitchens made it cheap. Butchers sold liver nearly free, scraps nobody else wanted. With bread and onion, it became a working man's protein powerhouse. The onions mattered. Their bite cut through the fatty richness, waking tired mouths. That sharp flavor stayed even after hours breathing coal dust or factory smoke. In Pittsburgh steel mills, men pulled 10-hour shifts, breaking only to unwrap these sandwiches. Rye bread caught the drippings. No napkins needed. Simple food, big strength. Mothers wrapped them in waxed paper, slipped them into dented lunch pails. Boys heading into rail yards carried the same sandwich their fathers ate before them. Each bite was gritty comfort, heavy, dense, unapologetic. It wasn't food for Sunday tables. It was survival between furnace blasts and hammer strikes. Tough but tender. Workers didn't complain. Liverwurst and onion meant a full belly, steady hands, and strength to last until the whistle blew. That was the only luxury they needed. Number 2. Fatback and molasses sandwich. This wasn't sweetness for pleasure. This was survival on a slice of bread. Salty fatback met dark molasses, creating a sandwich strong enough to power exhausted bodies. Fatback was the poor man's bacon. Cheap, salted slabs fried crisp or eaten raw. It gave workers the fat and salt needed for brutal 12-hour shifts. Molasses balanced the salt. Thick, dark syrup poured slow, clinging to bread. Sugar for quick energy. Fat for lasting strength. A chemistry lesson learned through hunger. In Alabama cotton mills, mothers packed these for children barely 12. Cheap pork, homemade syrup, and bread meant strength, stamina, and hope wrapped in simple wax paper. Factory whistles blew, and men opened tin lunch pails. That sandwich smelled of farm kitchens and survival. Sweet and salty, sticky and sustaining, never wasted. It was messy. Bread softened, fingers stuck together, but nobody cared. It was fuel disguised as food, designed to carry men past exhaustion and back again. Every bite was contradiction. Harsh and sweet, poor and rich, desperate and comforting. A sandwich that told the truth. Survival never tasted easy, but it worked. Number 3. Cold meatloaf sandwich. Yesterday's dinner became today's lunch. Thick slices of cold meatloaf tucked between bread. No waste, no frills, just leftovers transformed into a factory worker's midday salvation. Meatloaf stretched ground meat with breadcrumbs, onions, and eggs. It was Depression wisdom. Make little feed many. Cold slices became hearty, reliable fuel for the long factory day. In Detroit auto plants, men unwrapped sandwiches still smelling faintly of Sunday dinner. Each bite carried a reminder of home, sacrifice, and family that never left them. The ketchup glaze clung sweet to bread, its sugar soaking deep. Crumbs stuck to fingers, but nobody minded. Flavor was comfort, even inside noisy industrial walls. Cold meatloaf stayed firm, easy to pack, never spoiling quickly. It was perfect for workers without refrigeration, a practical luxury built from thrift and mothers' hands. In steel mills and rail yards, men sat shoulder to shoulder, lunch pails open, each one holding a cold meatloaf sandwich. Shared hunger became shared tradition. No fancy spreads, no garnish needed. Just bread, meat, and memory pressed together. A humble sandwich that carried yesterday's warmth into today's hard labor. Every bite told a story of survival. It wasn't glamorous, but it filled bellies, steadied hands, and proved love could be carried between two slices of bread. Number 4. Pickled tongue sandwich. This was the butcher's secret. Pickled tongue, sliced thin, layered on bread. A tough cut transformed by brine, it carried factory workers through endless, sweat-soaked shifts. Tongue cost pennies, overlooked by the wealthy. But vinegar, spice, and thyme softened it into something rich. Immigrant kitchens discovered flavor where others saw waste and scraps. Sliced thin, it lay against bread with mustard or onion. Each bite was tangy, chewy, sharp, a challenge for jaws tired from labor, yet deeply satisfying. In New York garment factories, women unwrapped wax paper, releasing brine's sharp aroma. Lunchrooms smelled of vinegar, bread, and survival. These sandwiches fueled endless stitches and long days. Salt and vinegar preserved the meat, making it safe without refrigeration. That practicality mattered most. A sandwich that lasted through hot, unforgiving work environments. Factory whistles blew, but the sandwich remained steady. Salt sharpened, vinegar revived, bread softened. Flavor lingered long after the meal, carrying strength back to the workbench. Each bite told a story of thrift and ingenuity. Pickled tongue sandwiches weren't luxuries. They were proof nothing was wasted, and survival always found flavor. Immigrants carried Old World recipes into New World factories. Pickled tongue bridged both lives, old homelands, and new struggles. A humble sandwich became a cultural survival guide. Edible resilience. Number 5. Egg and olive salad sandwich. This sandwich was about stretching. A few eggs, chopped olives, mayonnaise, and bread. Depression kitchens turned little into enough, feeding whole households with nothing more than patience and wisdom. Eggs boiled hard, mashed by hand, bound with mayonnaise. Olives gave tang, disguising simplicity. A cheap protein transformed into spread, creamy and sharp, ready for worn lunch pails. In Ohio factories, wives packed these sandwiches before dawn. Backyard eggs, jarred olives, fresh bread made at home. Economy became nourishment. Care disguised as ordinary food. The spread went thick on bread, softening crusts. Tangy, creamy, salty, sustaining. Calories meant strength, flavor meant comfort. Every bite carried both practicality and affection. In coal mines and assembly lines, men ate quickly. No pause for conversation, just fuel. Egg and olive sandwiches restored energy when exhaustion threatened to take over. Whistles cut breaks short. The sandwiches went down fast, leaving mayonnaise stains on wax paper. Hunger didn't ask for beauty, only fullness. That was always enough. It wasn't glamorous, but it mattered. Egg and olive salad sandwiches proved survival depended more on ingenuity than luxury. Simplicity became resilience in every spread-filled slice. Each bite reminded workers that small things stretched far. Olives added brightness, eggs added strength. Between bread, thrift became dignity, feeding generations who asked only to endure. Number 6. Fried bologna sandwich. This wasn't steak, but workers called it poor man's steak. Thick bologna slices, fried until edges curled, stacked on soft bread. Simple, salty, and deeply satisfying. Factories loved bologna because it was cheap. Meat scraps pressed into a loaf, sold for pennies. Frying gave it dignity, turning scraps into smoky, savory comfort. The skillet hissed as slices hit hot grease. Edges bubbled and curled like petals, fat sizzling into crisp perfection. That smell carried straight into hungry lunchrooms. In Ohio tire factories, men unwrapped wax paper and grinned. Fried bologna meant home. It tasted familiar, reliable, a reminder that even scraps could taste grand. Sometimes mustard or cheese joined, but often just bread and bologna. Grease soaked into slices, turning them golden with flavor. That sandwich filled stomachs and spirits. Children of factory families carried the same to school. Cheap meat, quick frying, thick bread, nourishment that stretched tight budgets without apology. Practical food made proud. It was greasy, messy, and beloved. Fried bologna sandwiches fueled steel, coal, and rubber industries. Every bite proved survival didn't need polish, just flavor and calories. The sound of sizzling bologna became memory itself. For workers, it wasn't just food. It was resilience, identity, and hope pressed between two humble slices. Number 7. Cabbage and mayo sandwich. When meat ran out, cabbage filled the gap. Shredded, salted, mixed with mayonnaise, it became a worker's sandwich, cheap, crunchy, and sustaining during leaner years. Cabbage was poor man's friend. Hearty, cheap, lasting through winter. Shaved thin, it made a filling that stretched across slices of bread, disguising hunger with crisp texture. Mayonnaise bound it together. Creamy richness softened cabbage's bite, turning rough leaves into something that felt indulgent. It was depression ingenuity. Comfort found in the simplest forms. In Pennsylvania, coal towns, miners ate these sandwiches deep underground. Bread softened by mayo, crunch of cabbage intact. A poor man's coleslaw, packed in dented tin pails. Factory mothers packed them for children, too. Cabbage replaced costly meat, stretching pennies until payday. A sandwich that carried both thrift and motherly care inside each bite. It crunched loud in noisy lunchrooms, fresh against machinery's drone. Workers didn't complain. A full stomach mattered more than pride. Cabbage and mayo kept bellies steady. This was survival disguised as simplicity. No fancy spices, no waste, just cabbage, mayo, and bread feeding thousands who labored hard with little thanks. Every bite told truth. Meatless didn't mean joyless. The cabbage and mayo sandwich proved even the humblest ingredients could carry workers through hunger, one crunchy mouthful at a time. Number 8. Ham salad sandwich. Scraps of ham, chopped fine, mixed with relish and mayonnaise. Ham salad sandwiches took leftovers and turned them into something greater. Thrift and flavor combined in every bite. Ham bones simmered for soup, meat carved for Sunday. What remained became ham salad, nothing wasted. Even tiny scraps fed families, spread generously on bread for workers. Mayonnaise bound the mixture creamy. Pickle relish added tang, balancing salt. Some recipes added celery for crunch, mustard for bite. A thrifty puzzle solved with flavor. In Chicago, packing plants, families lived off pork scraps. Men carried ham salad sandwiches into the stockyards, proof that leftovers could still taste like luxury on tough days. Every spoonful stretched farther than expected. A single cup of chopped ham became lunch for 3 or 4. Economical, nourishing, and quick. Factory families depended on it. Wax paper wrapped them tight, mayonnaise glistening in the light. By midday, bread softened under the spread, transforming into something rich, salty, and tangy. a worker's treat. Children loved them, too. Ham salad sandwiches filled lunchboxes and school tables. Scraps became sustenance, feeding generations through thrift and flavor, not abundance. Every bite spoke of ingenuity. Ham salad was more than food. It was proof families could stretch little into much, feeding bodies and preserving dignity. Number 9. Beef dripping sandwich, bread and gravy. This wasn't just a sandwich. It was survival spread on bread. Beef drippings, saved from roasts, soaked into crusts, turning scraps into factory fuel for long shifts. Every pan of roasted meat left behind liquid gold. Workers' families poured those drippings into jars, congealed fat and rich juices waiting to be reborn as sustenance. Spread onto bread, it softened dry crusts. Salt and meat essence transformed yesterday's scraps into today's lunch. Cheap, filling, and deeply satisfying, it carried workers through exhaustion. In Pittsburgh steel mills, men unwrapped these sandwiches with pride. The scent of roasted meat lingered, even without fresh cuts. It was flavor borrowed from Sunday's table. Factory whistles signaled break time, and dripping sandwiches came out. Grease glistened on fingers, bread sagged under richness, but hunger vanished in just a few hearty bites. Mothers saved every drop, knowing nothing could be wasted. Drippings turned bread into comfort, carrying calories desperately needed for families who labored without pause. It was messy, it was humble, but it mattered. Beef dripping sandwiches stretched meager meals into survival, proving scraps could still build strength and dignity. Every bite was memory. Of family dinners, of scarcity turned into plenty, of resourcefulness that carried generations. Bread and drippings weren't luxury, they were lifelines. Number 10. Fried sardine sandwich. This sandwich smelled strong but carried power. Fried sardines, cheap and oily, pressed into bread gave workers the protein they needed when fresh fish or meat was impossible. Sardines came from tins, packed in oil, a poor man's protein, shelf-stable and cheap. Frying them crisp made them taste like more than just necessity. Onions and mustard sometimes joined the fish, cutting the richness. Bread absorbed oil, softening and soaking up flavor. A humble feast wrapped in paper carried into factories. In New England mills, immigrant workers swore by sardine sandwiches. Cheap tins stacked in pantries, always ready to fill lunchboxes. It was food that asked for nothing. The smell lingered long in lunchrooms, salty and bold. Some turned noses, others leaned in with envy. Strong flavors spoke to strong stomachs hardened by labor. Crisp edges gave way to soft centers, briny and rich. Workers chewed slow, savoring every bite, knowing this was more than lunch. It was survival in tin form. Children ate them too, sardines fried quick on cast-iron pans. Families stretched one can across 4 sandwiches, proof of thrift carried from kitchen to factory floor. Every bite was salty resilience. Fried sardine sandwiches reminded workers that even the humblest foods, with fire and bread, could become fuel for life's hardest shifts. Number 11. Peanut butter and bacon grease sandwich. This was poverty's invention. Peanut butter spread thick on bread, finished with bacon grease instead of bacon. Sweet met salty, giving workers calories when meat was rare. Peanut butter came cheap, protein packed into jars. Bacon grease saved in tins was too precious to waste. Together they became a sandwich dense with survival. The grease spread glossy, salty, and smoky. It turned plain peanut butter into something richer, closer to meat. A poor man's trick that tasted far better than expected. In southern textile mills, men unwrapped these sandwiches with pride. The flavor was familiar, faint bacon echoing through peanut butter, a reminder of breakfasts long gone. Bread softened under grease, sticking to fingers. The smell was both sweet and savory, filling lunchrooms where workers sat shoulder to shoulder, eating silence and sustenance. Factory families swore by it. Peanut butter gave strength, bacon grease gave stamina. Together, they kept men steady on assembly lines stretching late into the night. It wasn't elegant, but it was ingenious. A sandwich born of thrift and necessity, carrying workers through long hours without apology or shame. Every bite told the truth. Survival didn't wait for luxuries. Peanut butter and bacon grease sandwiches were desperation turned delicious, a quiet innovation in kitchens that wasted nothing. Number 12. Cold Potato Sandwich. This was the workers' answer to hunger when meat was gone. Cold, boiled potatoes, sliced thick, layered on bread with salt. Simple, filling, and brutally practical. Potatoes were cheap and dependable. They grew in poor soil, stored through winter, and stretched farther than almost any other food. Cold slices became a worker's steady fuel. Bread softened under the potato's starch, turning heavy but satisfying. A pinch of salt made flavors bloom, transforming plain leftovers into something comforting and almost indulgent. In Pennsylvania coal towns, miners carried these into shafts. Potatoes didn't spoil, didn't crumble, didn't fail. They fueled men who swung picks in total darkness. Factory bells rang, and workers opened tins to reveal pale slices on bread. It wasn't glamorous, but it kept hands strong and backs unbroken. Some families added butter or onions, but often it was just potato and bread. Hunger didn't ask for extras. It asked only for fullness. The sandwich carried memories of frugal kitchens. Mothers knew cold potatoes weren't scraps. They were survival disguised as lunch, a reminder that nothing ever went to waste. Each bite was heavy, humble, and necessary. The cold potato sandwich proved workers could endure hard times with nothing more than bread, roots, and sheer determination. Number 13. Pimento Cheese Sandwich. This was the South's pride, spread between bread. Pimento cheese, sharp cheddar, mayonnaise, diced red peppers, kept mill workers steady through long days at looms. Cheese was shredded fine, stretched with mayo to go farther. Pimentos added color and tang, brightening flavor without expense. A thrifty luxury, spread thick on white bread. In North Carolina textile mills, women packed these for husbands and children alike. Pimento cheese was cheap, creamy, and reliable. The South's answer to endless hunger. The mixture clung to bread, no refrigeration required for a few hours. It made perfect factory food, ready for quick bites during brief, noisy breaks. Mill mothers guarded their recipes, some adding cayenne for heat, others vinegar for sharpness. Every spread was personal, every sandwich a reflection of home kitchens. In hot southern summers, pimento cheese kept families cool. No frying pans, no ovens, just mixing bowl, spoon, and thrift carried onto mill floors in wax paper. It wasn't rich food, but it felt indulgent. Bright, creamy, tangy, it gave flavor to monotony. Workers unwrapped it with pride, knowing thrift could still taste beautiful. Each bite whispered tradition and resilience. Pimento cheese sandwiches weren't just lunch, they were heritage, stretching from kitchen counters into factory floors, feeding bodies and memories alike. Number 14. Scrapple Sandwich. Scrapple was poor man's ingenuity. Pork scraps ground with cornmeal, pressed into loaves, fried crisp in fat, and sandwiched on bread. Waste turned into sustenance for hard labor. Butchers sold scraps cheap. Families added cornmeal, creating blocks of meat and grain. Fried thick, it became hearty slabs, perfect to carry into fields or factories. The crust was golden, crisp edges giving way to soft, savory centers. Bread soaked up grease, turning every bite into something rich and unexpectedly satisfying. In Pennsylvania, steel towns, scrapple sandwiches filled lunch pails of German and Dutch immigrants. It was thrift and tradition, frying resilience into something worthy of a worker's break. Each slice carried echoes of pig slaughter days when nothing was discarded. Scrapple was respect for the animal, economy turned into nourishment by hands that wasted nothing. Factory floors smelled faintly of grease when tins opened. Scrapple sandwiches weren't elegant, but they steadied men through endless shifts, each bite heavy with calories and history. Mothers fried it before dawn, slipping hot slices between bread for fathers and sons. By midday, it had cooled, but flavor and strength remained. Scrapple sandwiches proved survival was an art. Every bite spoke of thrift, resourcefulness, and a culture that turned scraps into comfort without apology or shame. Number 15. Fried egg and onion sandwich. This was breakfast turned into lunch. Fried eggs stacked on bread with browned onions, warm or cold, gave the workers protein and flavor that lasted through exhausting shifts. Eggs were cheap, gathered from backyard hens. Onions came from gardens or markets, sliced thin and fried golden. Together they created a sandwich both hearty and practical. The yolks broke and soaked into bread, making every bite rich. Onions gave sweetness and bite, lifting the humble egg into something worth savoring in silence. In Chicago stockyards, men opened tins to reveal fried egg sandwiches, smell of onions drifting across the floor. Strong hands needed strong food, and this delivered. Factory mothers fried eggs at dawn, layering them still warm between bread. By noon, they were cold, but flavor stayed, carrying love into the workplace. The sandwich was messy, yolk staining paper and fingers. But no one cared. Each bite gave energy, proof that simplicity could be as filling as meat. Onions turned humble eggs into celebration. Sweetness balanced richness, creating something memorable in a worker's day. Every mouthful was proof that even the plainest food could inspire. The fried egg and onion sandwich wasn't elegant, but it mattered. It kept men steady, powered long hours, and reminded them of home kitchens that never forgot. Number 16. Corned beef hash sandwich. Corned beef hash was already leftovers, fried with potatoes. But pressed between bread, it became a worker's meal. Salty, filling, and dependable inside the loudest factories. Hash stretched meat farther, mixing scraps with potatoes and onions. Fried crisp, it became hearty fuel. Packed into sandwiches, it carried both thrift and indulgence in one bite. In New York shipyards, men ate hash sandwiches on docks. Cheap canned beef, leftover potatoes, and bread meant nobody went hungry while ships rose from steel frames. Factories hummed while workers unwrapped paper. Hash still carried the smell of frying pans, comfort from kitchens now far away, warmth preserved in every greasy bite. Bread absorbed grease and flavor, turning each sandwich heavy and satisfying. One serving powered hours of lifting, hammering, and standing, work demanding strength more than elegance. Corned beef hash sandwiches weren't pretty. They crumbled, dripped, stained hands. But hunger didn't ask for neatness. It asked for calories, and hash gave more than enough. Families made it from scraps, stretching pennies until payday. Leftovers became lifelines, fried into hash that could carry men through one more shift without complaint. Each sandwich was thrift wrapped in love. Corned beef hash reminded workers that even scraps fried crisp could be dignity, nourishment, and resilience pressed between bread. Number 17. Molasses and butter sandwich. Sweetness met survival here. Molasses, dark and thick, spread across bread, topped with butter. Cheap, filling, and quick, it gave factory workers calories to keep moving. Molasses was poor man's sugar, bought in bulk. Butter, churned at home or bought sparingly, added richness. Together they turned plain bread into a worker's treat. In southern cotton mills, mothers packed molasses sandwiches for children working machines. Sticky, messy, but sustaining, they gave sweetness in a world that rarely offered it. The syrup soaked bread, dark streaks staining paper. Workers licked fingers, savoring sugar's energy rush. Butter's creaminess softened molasses' bite, balancing sweet with richness in every bite. This was energy disguised as pleasure. Sugar gave quick bursts of strength. Butter gave staying power. Together, they helped men survive hours of heat and labor. Families used them as breakfast, too, eaten before long walks to mines or mills. Molasses sandwiches were simple but carried enough strength to start the day. It wasn't luxury, but it felt close. Sweetness was rare, and every sticky bite was a reminder that life, however hard, still had moments of comfort. Every sandwich told a story of thrift and endurance. Molasses and butter-fed hungry workers, proving survival could sometimes taste like sweetness on bread. Number 18. Cheese and pickle sandwich. This was tang and comfort bound together. Sharp cheese stacked with sour pickles on bread gave workers a jolt of flavor during long, grinding factory days. Cheese was sturdy, affordable protein. Pickles were vegetables preserved through winter. Together they stretched rations, keeping families fed and workers steady without relying on costly meat or sugar. The sharpness cut through monotony. Each bite snapped with vinegar and salt, chasing fatigue away. It was bold food for tired hands and empty pockets. In textile mills, women unwrapped cheese and pickle sandwiches at noon. Tangy scent filled break rooms, reminding them survival didn't have to taste bland or colorless. Cheese softened as hours passed, melding with pickle brine. Bread absorbed everything, turning simple slices into flavor-packed meals that carried workers until the whistle blew. Some families used cheddar, others American slices. Pickles varied too, dill or sweet, depending on what jars filled pantry shelves. Every sandwich was personal thrift at work. Mothers packed them quickly, knowing ingredients kept well. No spoilage, no waste, just sandwiches that lasted the day, providing strength in cheap, reliable, satisfying form. Each bite told a lesson. Preservation was survival. Cheese and pickle sandwiches carried not only flavor, but history, proving resourcefulness kept workers moving generation after generation. Number 19. Salmon croquette. Sandwich. Canned salmon was humble treasure. Shaped into croquettes, fried crisp and tucked into bread, it became a worker's protein-packed lunch. Hearty, flavorful, and proud of its thrift. The croquettes stretched one can across several sandwiches. Mixed with breadcrumbs, onions, and eggs, they fried golden, transforming canned fish into something worthy of the hardest shifts. In southern textile mills, salmon croquettes appeared in nearly every lunch pail. Cheap tins turned into crispy patties, wrapped warm in bread before the sun even rose. The smell carried through break rooms, rich, savory, unmistakable. Workers bit into crunchy crusts, revealing tender salmon inside, a small joy in otherwise unrelenting days. Mothers relied on these patties, feeding large families with little. Every croquette represented thrift and love, a reminder that waste was never tolerated in poor kitchens. Bread caught the grease, holding croquettes steady. By lunchtime, they were cool, but flavor lingered strong. Every bite powered tired bodies through hours of noise and sweat. Sometimes a spoonful of mayonnaise or mustard was added, but often just croquette and bread. It didn't need extras. Survival had its own flavor. Each sandwich was proof of resilience. Salmon croquettes reminded workers that even the cheapest tins could become comfort when mixed with care and fried golden with patience. Number 20. Cold biscuit and ham sandwich. This was Southern tradition carried into mills and factories. Leftover biscuits split open, stuffed with cold ham, became portable lunches filled with salt, strength, and memory. Biscuits were baked fresh daily, but leftovers never wasted. Ham, salted and cured, lasted long. Together they created sandwiches meant for workers needing durability as much as taste. In Carolina mills, families sent children with biscuit and ham sandwiches. Wax paper wrapped them tight, holding both flavor and home inside factory walls. Salt and flour became fuel. Biscuits were crumbly, sometimes dry, but ham's fat softened them. Every bite was salty satisfaction, carrying the comfort of breakfast into the hardest parts of the day. Ham was often scraps, fat trimmings or bones picked clean. Yet layered inside biscuits, they tasted rich, indulgent even. Waste turned into nourishment with every sandwich. Break rooms filled with biscuit crumbs and ham grease stains. Workers chewed slow, savoring food that felt like tradition in a place that offered little comfort. This was food tied to identity. Southern migrants carried it north, biscuits reminding them of kitchens, farms, and family left behind for factory floors. Every bite was memory disguised as sustenance. Cold biscuit and ham sandwiches were survival, heritage, and comfort, all tucked into humble, crumbling bread. These weren't gourmet meals. They weren't polished dishes for Sunday tables. They were survival wrapped in bread, carried in dented tins and paper bags, eaten on steel beams and factory floors. Every sandwich told a story, of mothers stretching scraps into miracles, of fathers carrying cold biscuits and meatloaf between shifts, of children fed on thrift disguised as comfort. They were cheap, they were messy, they were strong. But above all, they worked. They powered men through 12-hour shifts, women through mills, families through hunger and hard times. Factories may be quieter now, mills long closed, and mines abandoned. But these sandwiches remain. They are echoes of a working class that built strength from scraps. When you bite into fried bologna, pimento cheese, or even cold potatoes on bread, you taste more than food. You taste history, memory, and the grit of survival. Because these weren't just sandwiches. They were lifelines. They were proof that dignity could be carried between two slices, and love could still taste like grease, crumbs, and molasses. And that's the truth of these 20 lost sandwiches, forgotten by cookbooks, but remembered by families. Factory food that built America, one humble bite at a time.